Thank you, Dr. Papacek, for taking the time to talk with us. I'm really curious, could you tell us, how did you use the strategy of scheduling time when you leave the Zoom call, as an instructor?
Absolutely. So, one of the things that I decided to do was allow students to have their work time and have small group time during class. And so, some of the times that we would have when we were in a face to face environment, students would be allowed to, we would students would we would break them into small groups, and then when we broke them into small groups, you find that students not only would do their work and finish the task that was assigned, but they would also have a little bit of gossip time, they'd have a little fun time, they would plan for coffee or whatever in another time. And so I started doing that in class, where I would have a lecture or a very small mini lecture, and then there'd be some type of activity that would demonstrate that they were listening and that they were able to do what was provided to them in the lecture. And so I would give them an activity, a document, a Google Doc, whatever it was. And then I would tell them, all right, I'm leaving. And they would see that I would leave my screen open, so they know I wasn't sitting at my computer. I would mute myself, and then I would leave for a designated amount of time. And then I would come back. And when they saw me come back into the screen, they knew that meant that they had 1 minute left of time, that I was still muted, and they could finish up with what they were talking about or their tasks that they had to do. Or some of them admittedly said they scrambled during that last minute as to what they were going to share, because then after that minute was over and the time that they had that working time together, then I would come back into class, and then we would have another deeper discussion about the lecture and about the activity, and they would share with me, and then we would have some questions, and we continued to do that throughout. And by the end of the semester, they also asked if they could do the same thing, where they would work on something that was for my class, but also was a collaborative effort for another class. And so they would go into breakout rooms, and they would ask me to put them in particular breakout rooms. And I would let them have that class time if available, let them have that class time to work and figure out problems for themselves.
That's terrific. Great. And what did you see as the student response to that strategy?
I started to see deeper discussions. We have students a lot of times that are in the top part of the iceberg and never go below the surface, right? But
Right.
once I started leaving after I gave them an activity to do, well, then they started to really talk it through and think it through. And what they said to me was, we've never had you for a professor before. We're a little uncomfortable with each other because we didn't know some of our peers. Some of our peers, this was the first time we've been in class together. And we were able to make mistakes without you knowing we were making mistakes. And we were able to come up with um, solutions and ideas and different kinds of strategies amongst a smaller group, where they didn't feel like they were being there was a lot of cold calling. I didn't have to
Mm.
do any cold calling whatsoever, because then they
Wow.
started like participating a lot more and going, oh, I can say what my peer said in the group. And so, I'm going to jump right in here and give an answer to this question where I may not ever talked before. And a couple of my students that I would pull them off into smaller meetings afterwards just to check in to see how things are going. They gave me that information. They said, I get very nervous. I get tongue tied. I know the answer, but unless I have opportunity to practice that answer, I don't want to jump in class because I don't want to, students' words, make a fool of myself. And so, yeah, so I'm like, oh, please do. Um, I do all the
Good.
time. Um, and so it gave them that opportunity to take some risks, right, in a small
Right.
setting, and then take larger risks where they could say, my group decided the answer would be blah, 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 blah. So it was a great way to increase their learning, come up with a different design of teaching because I was really flipping it towards them. And it wasn't a total flipped classroom, but I would flip a lot of the instruction in the activity to them without them really knowing it. And they obviously explain that later, so they would know the strategy to use. But then they came back and they were able to say, oh, I get it. I saw this in my classroom. I saw my mentor teacher doing that. I'm going to use this next time. And they were able to also peer help and assist with problems.
Neat. Well, great. Thank you so much for sharing that strategy with us. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I hope it's helpful.
Definitely. Thank you.
Mhm.